Hello and welcome to Forever Box. And today we're going to be picking a team to beat the All Blacks back-to-back in New Zealand, including at Eden Park, which is one of probably the biggest challenges of any international team, and the biggest challenge for the Springbok side this year is to go and beat them in a stadium where they don't lose. They just don't lose. And if we are to try and win the Rugby Championship this year, we are going to have to try and beat New Zealand twice. And it'll be interesting to sort of see how we kind of go about doing this, because we've not got necessarily the strongest incoming tour with Italy and Georgia, for example. So there is a sort of chance of us, by the time we get to New Zealand, being a bit of sort of undercooked, depending on how strong Australia is as well, because we do play them before New Zealand. But when we go over to New Zealand, it's going to be a huge test, and we're going to have to try and pick our best 23, probably 2 weeks in a row, really. And so I thought we'd take a bit of a stab based on kind of what we saw last year, maybe some of the form guards at the moment. And obviously, this is months in advance. So we can factor in certain injuries like no Jasper Wiese, no Handré Pollard, for example. But obviously, we don't know what some of the other injuries will be by the time we get there, as well as what some of the form will be. So doing a little bit of assuming with regards to certain people getting back to form and the likes of that. But very interesting conversation to have with regards to should there be more young players involved, for example, different players involved, and very interested to see what your thoughts are of this side. So get them down in the comments below. Let's have a look at what I've gone with, shall we? So this is kind of what I've kind of sort of had a stab at. And yeah, look, I think certain things I think are pretty set in stone. Siya Kolisi captaining, for example, probably going with a 6-2 split, maybe a 7-1 split. You never know, especially with some of the players we've got available at us at the moment. But let's go through it, shall we? Oxenchair has to start. We know this. We've now got that down to Oxenchair starting, Gerastina come off the bench. That's working really, really nicely. What I think we'll see moving forward, though, quite a lot in the boxes, I think we'll see Jan Vessels featuring in this 23 as someone who can start at hooker, move to tight head, loosehead, for example, and cover two different positions. The big thing big sort of first call I've made here is no Frans Malherbe in the 23. Currently injured, has had injury issues throughout this season, and as a result, you cannot ignore the form of Wilco Louw. He's playing tremendous rugby, and he is demolishing any scrum he comes up against. So he has to, for me, be in that side. Whether you kind of go with an impact player is an interesting concept. I do think that, for example, he could be coming off the bench and absolutely decimating scrums towards the last stages of the game. Vincent Cox kind of backed more as that ball and play type of scrummager, very good scrummager, but in terms of a tight head, he likes to have ball in hand. He likes to sort of bash it up and hit a gap, very athletic around the field, and they kind of like having that in the latter stages of the match. So that will be an interesting dynamic, but I do think Wilco Louw can't be ignored anymore. He has to be in there. Thomas du Toit, there's a case for him to be made. He's scoring tries for fun, for example. But I do think that moving forward, those will be our tight heads. It'll be Thomas du Toit and Wilco Louw. I think Asnat and Klabakanya will be in around the fringes as well as likes of a Neatling for Siya. But Wilco Louw for me has to be in there. Vincent Koch right there. A lot of pressure from Thomas du Toit. He could very well feature on that bench. In the second row, assuming we can get back to full fitness, Eben Etzebeth and Franco Mostert is probably where I'd go. I've gone back to basically the 2019 locks, actually. I still don't think there's a lock out there right now that's really bashing the door down. I'm very disappointed that, for example, like a Jason Jenkins hasn't just, arrived and said, bang, I'm back, and really sort of put himself in the mix. Ruan Nakil is playing really well, has also had his injury issues. I thought Salman Murat, actually, the lock a couple of weeks ago, was very, very strong against Benetton. Not Benetton, Connacht. But, no locks really sort of, for me, smashing down the door and basically saying that they are better than the current four that we've had over these years. So I've gone with Franco Mostert and Eben Etzebeth in that second row. This, for me, could be a bit of a toss of a coin. But I've gone with Cameron Coleman in the number 6 jersey. I would be interested to see if we start using Siya Kolisi as more of an 8. We've seen him being used there for the Sharks, and he's flourishing in that role. He's loving having more ball in hand and more responsibility there. And it'll be interesting to see if they do start to maybe look at him in that role. The nice thing about this is you could do a straight swap. Cameron Honeycomb at 8, Siya Kolisi at 6, for example. I do feel for Marcel Coetzee. I think he's playing tremendous rugby at the moment. He's probably the full number 8 South African player out there. But for whatever reason, just hasn't really been involved in any sort of camps. Doesn't really seem to be on the radar. So I've not sort of included him. I do think he probably should be in the squad, and you'd have a very good chance, I think, of starting. No Handré Pollard, no Jasper Wiese means that number 8 jersey is very much up for grabs for the rest of the box sort of campaign. So, yeah, I think we could see Cameron Honeycomb in there. I think he does make the 23, especially because he's versatile. And this is the big thing. You know, we always talk about versatility, but you've got Franco Masters who can play 5 or 7. You've got Peter Steph Toy in there who can play, 7 or 5 as well. Your Cameron Honeycomb can play 6, 8, could probably play at number 7 as well. I've gone with Grant Williams starting. I think he is the form scrum off at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if after Clerk comes back into the mix. Last year, he wasn't sort of around the box quite a lot, almost sort of felt like he was almost being phased out. So, will be interesting to see if he's phased back in this season. I do think Jaden Hendrickson is really struggling with form, and I think that he's missed out on a big opportunity to put himself up as the number 1 box scrum off. I think Morne van den Berg is going to get some game time this year. I think he's gone back to the lines and playing really good rugby. They look at him as the next Faf de Klerk, and I think that he's starting to really, earn that those sort of comparisons. And you've got to go with Sash Famigomazulu. I mean, the game he had against Connacht, scoring that hat-trick, you just saw how world-class he can be. And he is a point of difference. That's the big thing. It's one thing, Handré Pollard, for example, ice cold, I've got him on the bench, will get you a job. And he's beaten the All Blacks more times than most Springbok fly halves. But Sasha's just special, and he just ignites that backline to a different level. In terms of our centers, got Damian Willemse and JC Kriel. Lekanya Am's got an opportunity, I think, if he can get a bit of a run of form, to get himself back into that mix, But I do think at this stage, those two are still our best centers. I do think that Handré Etzebeth, if he can go on a run, can start to give Damian Willemse a go. I personally would like to see Damian Willemse at times also getting a bit of a run at the inside centre. And the more that Apelele Fassi, I think, starts to contend for fullback, the more we might see Damian Willemse being deployed in different positions, or even maybe off the bench. So, I've gone with Cheslin Kolbe, Curtly Arndt as the 2 wings. You've got the likes of Ethan Hooker, Edward van der Merwe in waiting. Maxwell Mapimpi will be in and around the squad, but I don't think it makes our best side. And then I've gone with Damian Willemse at fullback. Yeah, playing inside centre mostly at the Stormers at the moment, but fullback is his position for the box. This might be considered a controversial call, given what Apelele Fassi did last year. He is coming back from injury, and again, I want to go back 2 years ago. Damian Willemse during the 2023 Rugby World Cup was one of the top 10 best rugby players on the planet. He just was, and I think he gets back to form. I think he is still our best fullback. It's a nice problem to have, to have Apelele Fassi really putting pressure on him. But I don't think that, even after the year he had last year, I don't think he dislodges Damian, because I think Damian can be one of the world's best players, And then off the bench, a bit of a bomb squad vibe, going with Malcolm Marx, Gerard Steenekamp, Vincent Koch. Again, you could have Thomas Toy in the number 18 jersey. You could have Jan-Hendrik Wessels in the number 17 jersey, to be honest, as something completely different. Malcolm Marx is if you're not starting, you nail on your number 16. Love that impact off the bench. Then I've gone back to the sort of the 2 locks kind of vibe. Look, you could get John Klein back in if he can go on a bit of a run form as well. I do think there are some locks who are starting to get a bit better. Ruan from Mark, for example, could be an option. If you want to go to sort of more your loose forwards, because we're obviously stacked with loose forwards, you could look at, again, we mentioned Marcel Coetzee as an option. I think Evan Roos could have if he can get back to form, puts himself in that mix. I think a Ruan Venter from the Lions, I think really probably should be involved. I think he would be a great impact player. But I've gone with kind of the tried and tested. Luat Diago, Arkestem, and Quokka Smith obviously is a mainstay in that bomb squad. And then I've gone with Kobus Reinach and Handré Pollard as more of kind of like you bring on this incredibly big and physical pack that's going to put you on the front foot, and then kind of the game management really of Reinach and Handré Pollard. I wouldn't surprise me if in a year's time we see Morne van den Berg starting, Grant Williams finishing, that kind of vibe. I think Handré Pollard off the bench works really well because you've got Sasha who covers 10, 12, 15. Damien covers 12 and 15, as well as potentially wing as well. You've got JC who can drop onto the wing. You've got every position sorted really in this 23. So very, very versatile. What do you think? What changes would you make? Which players do you think are hard done by not being in the side? These are the kind of conversations that are fun to have. And very interested to see what you think. So let me know what your changes are and what your maybe Springbok 23 to beat the All Blacks would be down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.